Hello, my name is Karen Hertenstein, and I just wanted to discuss a little bit about systems thinking. And so today I'm going to be looking at a smaller lens within the education system, looking at the Alabama Reading Initiative and Office of Mathematics Improvements, relationships with the principals, local reading specialists, the building coach, and the teachers and students in the schools in Alabama. And so, speaking about the relationships, we have the department, Alabama Reading Initiative Department, and the Office of Mathematics Improvement Department. And both of these departments are responsible for really giving out the information regarding the implementation guides for the Numeracy Act and the Literacy Act. And they give this information to the principals. You can see how they do this here. And they also are providing the information, and there are actually the supervisors for our local reading specialists and the math coach. And then the math coach and the specialists give back that information to the principals. And then the teacher is getting information from the principal, the math coach, the local reading specialist, and then going ahead and presenting the information to the students in the way that the Reading Initiative and the Office of Mathematics Improvements deems necessary to make sure that we're meeting the goals of the laws. And so thinking about that in a feedback loop, so I'm going to look at this local reading specialist, okay, and so they determine how much time teachers need to spend in Tier 1 and Tier 2 reading. And then the building math coach has come in and decided how much time we have to spend with the Tier 1 and Tier 2 requirements. And then there's the schedule in the school. So unfortunately, the school schedule is limited, and there's not a lot of time in the school day to implement all of these things within a very tight schedule. So trying to get everything that needs to be done according to the laws is passed down to the teacher, and then the teacher's stress level increases. And so then the teacher is going to the principal because the teacher is upset and having a difficult time trying to implement everything in that the math coach and the specialist want to be put into the schedule. And so the teacher does the best they can to provide information to their students and to teach the students, but sometimes students are just getting little pieces because there's not really enough time to actually fully teach what needs to be taught that's best for students. So then the students get confused, and sometimes that confusion and uh, leads to student behaviors, and so then the students go to the principals, and the principals go back to the students, and the principal goes back to the teacher, and so it just continues on and on and on. So I want to think about causality, and what are some questions that maybe are the cause, or maybe they can change some of these things. So the first question I want to talk about is what happens when the master schedule is adjusted to fit in more reading time. Well, what happens is that then there's not enough time for math, because according to the Numeracy Act, you have a certain amount of time that you have to spend in Tier 1 whole group, Tier 1 small group, and Tier 2. So if you lessen the time in reading, then there's not enough time in math. And then vice versa, if the master schedule is adjusted to fit more math time, then it affects the reading time, which is also in the Literacy Act. So then you don't have enough time to teach your kids reading according to the law. So either way, it's really, bumping heads. And so the question becomes, what happens if the principal makes the master schedule and then allows teachers to do what is best for kids when the classroom door is closed? So, and I ask this question because sometimes we need to be able to do the best for our kids. So I understand that there's all of these time requirements, and on paper that's required. But if my kids aren't learning to the depth of knowledge they need to learn, then I'm doing them a disservice. So I just kind of wonder if closing the door and just letting us teach our standards like we need to be teaching, might solve that problem. And then I just kind of wonder what would happen to behaviors if we give the kids what they need and lower the levels of confusion and frustration instead of just dabbling in little pieces of instruction. So kind of wonder about those things. Just as a reflection, In this system, it's kind of a hierarchical, and so you have from the top down, and then the parts are connected because the Office of Mathematics and the Alabama Reading Initiative, are in charge of the reading coaches who are supposed to come to the teachers and give us really what they want. And then this causes that feedback loop. So, and some loops aren't necessarily bad. In this case, I think that it's not necessarily a good one. And then how do you initiate changes? You start asking questions about what can change. When you look at a feedback loop, again, in this situation, I would say that teachers need to be given the flexibility to be able to teach our standards the way we need to be taught. And, try to show that we're doing on paper, but maybe all of these lawmakers and such need to listen too. So, and there's that.